Hey, Trinkets. I have 20 of the most commonly asked tarot related questions that I wanted to answer for you so that all of your questions about tarot, or at least the high level of your questions, like the higher ones, the most common ones, are answered finally for you all in one fell swoop, so you have all the answers that you need so you can feel empowered about moving forward in your tarot practice or in your tarot interests or anything related to a batch of tarot cards. If you can see behind me, I have a wicked inventory collection that is shelf one of like seven on this property that holds so much inventory for AV Tarot Market. So let's go ahead and start off with question number one. I don't expect us to be here long because I like to answer questions quick and direct. So let's try to get this in under 10 minutes if at all possible, right? All right, so let's go. So what's the difference between tarot and oracle cards? So to give it to you lightly, tarot cards are routinely a system of 78 to 79 cards that are based around particular already pre-established meanings and interpretations. Now, those interpretations can have some nuance and have some elevation or maybe some refinement depending on the reader or the education of or the practice of the reader that's doing the reading. But they all kind of have a similar kind of feel, especially if you're under a Rider-Waite-Smith system, if you're under a Thoth system, if you're under a Marseille system. They all kind of have about the same interpretation. Oracle cards are unique. They're unique because the interpretations for a set of oracle cards is individual to that deck or to that title. And so one deck of cards can be anywhere from like 12 or 2 oracle cards to, hundreds. Depending on the publisher, like for instance, Hay House, routinely it's between like 44 and maybe 60 cards for them. Blue Angels, about 45 to 60 cards for them. But it's individual to that title, while tarot is pretty routine, about 78, 79 cards is usually how it works. So how does tarot work? That's a hard question to answer only because there's not really an established, this is how it's done. I'm just realizing how glossy I am because I have my heater on because I'm freezing and now I'm sweating buckets. So how does that happen? Anywho, so how does it work? The way that I think tarot works is that tarot uses a mixed collection of serendipitous events of you the person, you the reader, seeing yourself in the cards regardless of what the card is, and you applying meaning based on that process. So sometimes it's a bit like a mirror. Other people like to believe that it's our guides, guardians, or ancestors manipulating the cards to provide an interpretation for you. And also it's a little bit of, I don't know. Some people call it quantum theory, some people call it like it's the gods, so it really just depends on what you believe or what your belief structure is. But they work to give you an answer. They work to give you information, knowledge, wisdom in some way, shape, or form. So basically how you come to the cards is what you'll get out of the cards, and that is how tarot works. Can anyone read tarot cards, or do you need special abilities? I'm on the camp of anybody can read tarot, because in all reality, if you can get a grasp of the meanings, or at least a visual understanding of the images, you can start to divine meanings. You can start to use your intuition. You can, if everyone has intuition, and I'm a believer in that, everyone has an intuition, then anybody can use tarot. It doesn't matter if you are religious or spiritual or agnostic. I think everybody can use tarot. What is the significance of the major arcana and the minor arcana in tarot? So the major arcana in a standard, we're going to go Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, okay? That's what I'm most familiar with. The major arcana is 22 cards that are based on the major life experiences of a person. The minor arcana is kind of the minor secrets, the minor events, the little things. It's the little stuff in life that kind of give more details, color, I don't know, license came to mind. I don't know about that. And it just adds a little bit more of the subtle details to life, and it robusts out the reading. Some other differences between the two is that the major arcana are just the cards themselves. You'll get the death card, it's just the death card. When you go into the minors, it will be the number of the card plus the suit of the card. Then you also go into the courts of that suit. So it's not really so much as complicated as it's, once you know it, you get it, and then you move on. However, the Two of Swords, for instance, is different than the Two of Wands, which is different from the Two of Pentacles, which is different than the Two of Cups. So they all kind of have their own nuanced little meaning that is kind of, they all kind of have a little elements of each other. If you start to work with numerology at the same time, they all kind of have little elements of each other. So it's a nice way to think about it. Can tarot cards predict the future? Okay, so when it comes to predicting the future, I'm on the camp of the future is written in sand, not in stone. So in some instances, in some ways, yes. With that, also, no. And I will say that because, for instance, if you get a bad outcome in your tarot spread or in your tarot reading, and you don't want that bad outcome, then you also have an opportunity to then change the circumstances, make different choices, do different things so that that outcome that it's showing for you doesn't arrive. So it also depends on your question. So I think it can. I used to use tarot a lot to do forecasting, to kind of understand like what the energy in my world is going to be looking like over a week or over a month. And it was pretty on point, to the point where when my son was acting up, it was too on point, and it was giving me anxiety because I was able to predict the day in which my son was going to go and do something crazy, and now we're all upset, and it was a bad day. So I stopped doing that for a little while. I would like to get back into that, so I might be doing that this year. How often should I cleanse or charge my tarot cards? That is up to you. I almost never do. My personal cards anyway. The one time in which I will is if, for instance, I've been doing a lot of like past life tarot work, and that energy from those old lives are kind of stuck and sticky on my cards. I will clear them using like my own little process, and that kind of pulls that sticky feel of that old life off of those cards. But just between readings or just between uses, I don't bother doing it. Now, some people are really ritualistic and they really like the process of cleaning and clearing, and they don't let anybody touch it because they have some feelings about it. And like, do you? It's all about what works for you. Because like for me, you can touch my cards. I don't give a shit. I don't care. And I have another friend that I know who's like, no one can touch her cards. If someone touches her cards, they're useless. Then she cannot use them and we'll never touch them again. I'm like, all right, that's extra, but do you, honey? Does it work? All right. The outcome is the same, ultimately. I get what I need out of my cards by my process. She gets what she needs out of her cards by her process. So that's all that matters. What is a tarot card reading, and what can I expect from one? That's a really good question, actually. I say a tarot card reading is a span of time that you spend with either yourself or with another person who can read cards to answer a particular question or gain particular insight. What can you expect from one? It depends on the reader. For me, like if you come to a tarot session with me, I expect you to have a question, and I expect for us to get a direct answer because I'm a direct reader. So if you come to me looking for like, what is the possible outcome of this situation? All right, let's pull out some cards. Let's see what shows up. This is the possible outcome. Great. You got what you expected. Or basically, I set up the expectations that you're going to get what we expect out of it. If there's something different, and I don't know if I'm going to get an answer that you like out of it, I will let you know. Like, I don't know where this is going to go, but that's okay. And we're going to dig in it anyway. And I'm going to hold your hand through this because I'm a firm believer in like, you're not doing this alone. So I'm here with you, and now I need details. So it really depends on your reader, what your expectations are walking in, and how that kind of combination works together to get the outcome of your session or your reading. How do I interpret reverse tarot cards? So in the beginning of my career, I thoroughly invested in learning and using reverse meanings in my sessions. Over the years, I just got rid of it because I get the info that I'm looking for regardless if it's upright or not, and that's more of my intuition at work. So if you are maybe just beginning, I would say don't use reversals because it's too much, because that's 78 meanings right there. Then as you get more experience and you want to add more breadth to your work, yeah, go ahead. Start researching and understanding what the reversal meanings of your cards are. After a while, you're not going to need it because your intuition is going to be so strong that you're going to know the inverse meaning of this card when it shows up, regardless of how it shows up. But that's just me. That's just me. Are there specific spreads for different types of questions? There are spreads for every type of question. Just Google search tarot spread for and insert whatever word you want, and you will find 900 spreads for that. And also, spreads are really easy to design, so they're everywhere. Can tarot cards be used for spiritual guidance and personal growth? Yes, all the time. I love using my tarot cards to talk to guides, guardians, and ancestors. I talk to my deceased loved ones. I talk to my spirit team with tarot or my head. Just depends on the situation. So yes, they can be used for spiritual guidance, and I use them a lot for personal growth when I'm looking for another perspective, an outcome, what I need to know about such and such situation, all that stuff. Question number 12 is, how do I develop my intuition when reading tarot cards? My thought is that the process of reading tarot is going to work your intuition, so you can't help but develop it. The biggest thing I would tell you to do is not to squash your intuition, not to disbelieve your intuition. So as it starts to show up for you in these different ways, just go ahead and blind faith believe it, especially if it's not something that involves someone else. So say, for instance, you do an event, not an event, you have a reading where you're doing some predictive work and you get a nudge about something. Well, go ahead and just believe it. That's fine. Just go ahead and believe it for now until something else shows otherwise. Because in all reality, it doesn't really matter. If it's between you and you, it doesn't matter. I have something in my eye. Oh my God. It's just between you and you. It doesn't really matter. Question number 13. Are there any taboo or negative cards in tarot? I think that society would say yes, and I would say, because I'm an Abby and I'm weird, there we go. I think that's the lash that was driving me nuts. I would say no. And I say no because I'm the type of person who believes that you need the perceived good and the perceived bad of every life experience. That good and bad is a judgment, not a state of being. So the taboo is what the human applies the taboo to. Taboos are the cultural, mores of their, what would you say, of their culture. However I apply those words. So any of the cards could be taboo, but it's from the person applying that taboo on that card. I personally don't have that kind of framework. I don't subscribe to that. So for me, even perceived difficult cards are just difficult cards, or difficult circumstances or whatever, not just taboo or negative. Can I use tarot cards for yes or no questions? Absolutely. I love doing it. I love, love, love doing it. One of my favorite ways of doing yes or no questions is by just pulling, taking your deck, shuffle it a bunch, take half of it, flip it upside down so you have reversals intermingled in your cards. Shuffle that a bunch of times, ask your question, yes or no question. When you shuffle your cards, you're going to pull down. I would pull it, so you have your deck. I would pull your cards, flip it over sideways. So don't flip, but rotate horizontally. There's the word. Your card down. Positive cards are upright. Negative cards, so yeses are upright, no's are negative and are reversed. The more yeses you get, the more of a yes the answer is. The more negatives you get, the more no of an answer it is. So say, for instance, you get 3 upright cards, that's a whole hell yes. If you get 3 reversal cards, that's a whole hell no. And if you get some variation in between, that kind of gives you the likelihood of a yes or a likelihood of a no. So yes, I love using tarot for yes or no questions, and I need to do a video on that one of these days. Oh, I'm getting messages. I like it. What is the difference between traditional and modern tarot decks? That's a good question. I would say it really, really, really depends, because more, let's say, recent tarot decks versus traditional tarot decks, because there's not really one. Well, maybe, I guess the argument could be laid that there's one or a few traditional or classic tarot. And the more moderns are variations of that similar artwork. I guess that could be the argument for it. So say, for instance, an indie artist produced a tarot deck that's based on the 78 images of the Rider-Waite system, but it's their interpretation. That'd be a modern deck. If you find a Centennial Edition Rider-Waite-Smith, it's a newer publication, but it's based on the classic representations of the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot. So that would be, I guess, a more traditional or classic style. Same for Marseille, Thoth, and the others. Visconti and others. What's the other question I have? How accurate are tarot card readings? I love that question, only because how accurate is anything? How accurate is anything? You can get a test result and have a false positive. You can take a test and it be wrong. And usually you only know what the answer is based on the outcomes of your circumstances, right? So the accuracy, if you're aiming for that, can depend on the reader, and also the amount of lived experience of either party who's interpreting the information. Because, for instance, if I say the information I'm getting says this, and you're like, well, let me be more specific. Sometimes when I'm doing mediumship work, I will get a symbol or a thought, and I'll try to translate that information to my client. I will say, for instance, this looks like a pink cup. Pink cup, something in it, it's a pink cup. And they're like, there's no pink cups in my world. There's no pink cups in my ancestor. There's no pink cups anywhere. There's no pink cups. There's no pink cups. They look at me like I'm wrong. I'm a terrible psychic. I'm wrong because there's no pink cups. However, as we go through our session, and they start telling me stories about the flowers that their mom used to bring home, and their favorite vase was this pink mosaic vase that was in a corner, and such and such and such and such. I'm like, well, there's your pink cup. I just saw it as a cup for whatever reasons. I didn't get vase, but guess what? I got chalice. I got object in which things are in. I got, pink. I got color. So it just depends on the amount of grace you're giving and how much you can kind of, it's not so much stretch, because pink cup and pink vase are real freaking close. If you said, for instance, pink cup, you're like, I have a poodle. No, that's too much of a stretch. Like, those don't even match, honey. That's what I mean. It really just depends. It really just depends. Question number 17 is, can I buy my own tarot deck, or does someone have to gift it to me? You can do either. My first one was gifted to me by my mom. And I've had other decks that I've purchased since then. They work the same whether they're gifted or not. It's a myth that they have to be gifted. So if you want tarot, go get tarot and they will work just fine for you. How do oracle cards differ from tarot cards in terms of usage? I think they can be used similarly. I would say you would probably use oracle to kind of enhance a tarot reading, not just to be the reading in itself. So for instance, if you want to just use an oracle card per day, because maybe you really like the artwork or there's a message in those particular cards that you're trying to integrate, you can combine the two to get a really robust reading. But they both can be used. The cool thing about tarot and oracle is that either can be used in any way that is useful for you. So there's not one way to tarot. There's a million ways to tarot. And if anybody says that there's only one way to do it, darling, then they're pretentious and an ass and probably a gatekeeper in some way, shape, or form and want to be special. And you can just, let them go about their merry way. Do it works for you, and just let that be it. Do you get what you need out of it? That's all that matters. That is all that matters. Question number 19 is, can tarot cards be used for psychological insights? People will say yes. I will say yes. A lot of people will also say that you shouldn't use cards to predict illnesses or talk about medicine or those kind of things. Why not? I would say, here's why you wouldn't. Say, for instance, you got a cancer diagnosis from your doctor, and then you go to your tarot deck to confirm it. And for whatever reasons, you have interpreted that your answer is I don't have cancer. That could be a really like a big shitstorm. So I probably wouldn't do that. If you, for instance, are trying to understand the mental process of another person, you're getting some clues in here that there might be a mental illness involved. Possibly. It gives you insight on how to move forward, navigate. But I wouldn't start like life-altering treatments based on tarot. I would use tarot as a supplement, as how to guide myself forward, how to emotionally move forward through this situation. How can I help or take care of myself through the circumstances? I wouldn't use it to medicate. Question number 20, the last one of the bunch. Are there any ethical considerations when reading tarot for others? Yeah. My ethics is I don't want to hurt anyone, but I'm not going to lie to you either. So I will work to say what I feel like our spirit team wants us to talk about. I will not beat you over the head with something, but I will be clear and I'll be kind. And if you're not ready to hear something, totally okay. I will share it as best as I can, as kindly as I can, and we can come back and visit this anytime in which you feel like it. But that's just how I work. I also try to make a point of not. It's something called third-party readings, where it's like, say for instance, you broke up with somebody and then you want to know what their new girlfriend is like. I'm not going to do that. And the reason I'm not going to do that is not so much that I couldn't, because trust, I can, but the problem is that it's not helping you. It's hurting you. I'm not going to do things for you that hurt you. I'm not going to be your form of flagellation. I'm not going to use you. You're not going to use me for self-harm. I'm not going to do it. So those are some of my ethical standards. I only want my work to help. And sometimes, yes, you need to open a wound to let it drain so it can heal, but you can do so with kindness, dignity, and respect. You don't take the arm and break it just because you can, okay? So those are my ethical considerations. But yeah, those are 20 of the most common tarot questions. Oh my gosh, I am now tired. My day is over. Let me know what you think. If you have any other questions that you think that you'd love to have answered, that this maybe sparked for you, or you heard from someone else, throw them into the comments. I'd love to hear all about them. I'm a big fan of conversating. Is that a word? Conversing. There we go. And having a more elaborate conversations about anything we're interested in. So you take care, okay? Bye.